And here we go.
Sports!
I listen to you guys all the time.
It's awesome.
I'm in the mood for one of your classic anecdotes.
Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, that's enough. Yeah. Hey guys, there's someone I want you to meet.
Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun on Off the Hook Sports. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net.
We're all part of the same team here.
Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Let's get rolling. A big show as we're going to take another look at Tennessee's assistant coaching hires, and we're going to rank the coaches all the way 1 through 10 of where we think they stand amongst themselves. It's like a Hunger Games of coaches is what I'd like to call it. Also on the program today, we'll preview Tennessee's spring practice quarterbacks today, so you'll want to tune in. Please hit that like and subscribe button. This day in Tennessee sports history. Some SEC Big Ten meeting takeaways. I think they're onto something, maybe, but they'll flub it up. Also, SEC talks about moving to a 9-game schedule. They should. And Cam Newton says Aaron Hernandez is a great person. Kim Caldwell is on the Naismith Coach of the Year watch list. Guys, this is for real. I'm telling you. And we'll talk the Vols contenders or pretenders in men's basketball. So hit the like and subscribe button. Caleb, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm well. I heard on the radio it was National Margarita Day. Is that the case?
Is it National Margarita Day? Let's see.
It's actually February the 22nd, but it's coming up. So let's go ahead and put that up. Do you like margaritas? Yes or no? What do you think about margaritas?
What was it? Did you ever watch the movie The Interview with James Franco? Where he was asked, do you think liking margaritas and Katy Perry is gay? And his response was, if liking margaritas and Katy Perry is gay, who wants to be straight?
Okay. I'm a weird guy. I don't like margaritas.
What?
I know. Is that strange? That is not today's tough question, whether or not Dave likes margaritas. Today's tough question will be, who is Tennessee's most valuable coach for what they're getting paid? Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Hit that like and subscribe button for me. Thank you.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, so today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, is this. Who is Tennessee's best value assistant coach? I think we can determine pretty quickly, and if you haven't had a chance, if you can drop in the chat, I'd appreciate it, Caleb. If you haven't had a chance, check out the story on offthehooksports.com. I think we can all agree that Tim Banks at $2.15 million is very valuable. However, we'll go through this list, and I think you'll find some guys that are better values for what they're getting paid. But I think he's the most important coach on this staff. If he were to leave, it would be very troublesome if I'm a Tennessee fan. Would you agree with that?
Yes. If Tim Banks were to leave, in terms of the best staff, the most important staff member, Tim Banks is that. Now, you're right. We can talk value with other people and how much you're paying, but Tim Banks is the guy you don't want to leave. He's in there. There are a few guys in that echelon. There are about there's 2. Which we'll get to, that you just don't want to let go. And Tim Banks is absolutely one of those.
Okay, let's get to number 2. You have a list in front of you. It's on offthehooksports.com. Who is number 2? I think this one was pretty obvious as well.
Yeah, Rodney Garner was number 2 at $900,000. Now, question. Is Rodney Garner a better value than Tim Banks? Because he seems a little – yeah, I think so too. I think so too. A lot of what Tim Banks is able to do, he can do because Rodney Garner coaches up and recruits the defensive line so well.
No, I completely agree with that. Whereas we'll get to Willie Martinez here in a second. I think that Tim Banks coaches despite him, not in spite of him, but despite him. So who is number 3, Caleb, on our Off the Hook Sports list?
Number 3 on the list is Glenn Ellerbe.
Okay, I think Glenn Ellerbe might be. Well, I'm not going to say he's the best value because we're going to get to that here in a moment. And that's today's tough question brought to you by Banks and Jones. But I think Glenn Ellerbe might be the most underappreciated. If you look at his time at Tennessee, he helped develop Cooper Mays into an all-SEC center. And then he was able to turn Darnell Wright into a first-round pick. And I thought last year his unit looked bad because of injuries. So I don't know that he's the best value on the board, but I think he's underrated by some Tennessee fans. Right or wrong?
My issue, and this is my thing with Glenn Ellerbe, I can't agree to put him on there until I see a player out of high school start for him. Is that fair to say? I see a player out of high school that was signed out of high school start for him.
Is that more? But my question is that more of a fundamental issue, of a philosophical, foundational issue, whatever the word you want to use, or is that Glenn Ellerbe? I mean, that's my question there. I mean, it seems to me like Tennessee has gone the direction of transfer portal guys. So you're not going to get a high school guy. So that's my biggest question there. Let's go to the next one. Updated number 4. This may be the biggest value of the bunch. Kelsey Pope, $550,000. I've got him rated as the number 4 assistant coach on the staff. He coached Jalen Hyatt in 2022. Now, I'm not stupid. I know football. I know how it works. I know that Jalen Hyatt was coached into the 2022 season, and he deserves a lot of the credit for what he did. But also, I found this interesting. The Vols have generated an SEC best 22 individual 100-yard receiving games while sending at least one player to the NFL every season. Kelsey Pope at $550,000 seems like a deal.
Yeah, no, Kelsey Pope I think is very underrated. A lot of people are upset with him with the way this past year went. I think he was coaching a little bit with one hand tied behind his back. He was trying to shorten the rotation. The coaches had the guys they wanted as the leaders and the veterans and wanted to go seniority. But Brew McCoy was not fully healthy. Dante Thornton kept getting hurt. I think, and Squirrel White got hurt. So I think Kelsey Pope was dealing with one hand behind his back coaching a lot of this time. And if you guys have a lot of questions about Kelsey Pope, ask Cedric Tillman. Remember, Cedric Tillman was a 2-star receiver, came out of nowhere and turned into a 1,000-yard receiver. He swears by Kelsey Pope and gave Kelsey Pope all the credit for developing him.
Yep. All right. Who's up next as we go down the list? It starts to get, in my opinion, slimmer pickings, except for this next one, who I think has done a fantastic job. And I question him and the hire when it was made. Who's next, Caleb?
All right. Next on the list for you is tight ends coach Alec Ablin. Now,
I think Alec Ablin has done a fantastic job. I mean, if you look at he worked with Jacob Warren, who friends of the program, did a great job. He helped guide Cal transfer McAllen Castles to a strong season, and then did the same with Alabama transfer Miles Kitselman. Now, the question for me is, what does he do with Ethan Davis? Because Ethan Davis, if he's not an all-SEC tight end, I'm going to go ahead and go on record. I'll be very disappointed with Tennessee staff or Davis or whoever is responsible for that, because he has all the ability to be a superstar.
Yeah, and that's going to be his biggest test is Ethan Davis. But you're right. Miles Kitselman was struggling at Alabama. I don't think he was getting a lot of action. So to have the impact he had is huge. And McAllen Castles really stands out. I also think Ablin does a little bit of brings an analyst approach a little bit to Heupel's offense. I'll say this. I think if Alec Ablin were offensive coordinator, which he may be in line to do one day, there'd be more creativity in what Josh Heupel's doing offensively. You'd have more scripted play calls. I think Alec Ablin is almost like an Alex Golesh protege more than anything long term.
That's interesting. All right. General Ursus, good morning. Matt, we'll get to Coach Chop. That is a good value, especially he is a recruiter. Who's the best value on Tennessee staff? And yes, Matt, we will continue to rank the staff. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because
Dave Hooker here for
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott.
Now we get to the point where things get a little bit more questionable at number 6. Linebackers coach William Inge, $720,000. I have him at number 6. He's going to have Arian Carter. He's going to have Jeremiah Thielander. I think the linebackers should be good, but I also kind of grade him on a curve because Keenan Pili has gotten hurt twice to begin the season. So I try to work with that a little bit, but to me, Ablin and Pope look like they're more valuable, making less money combined.
Yeah, I think so too. Also because William Inge isn't coaching that many players. I mean, we talked about that, particularly if you have an outside linebackers coach. I know he still coaches the linebackers, and he was only been there for a year, so we give him a bit of a break. But I don't see the value in paying him $720,000, except for I do believe, I could be wrong, but I do believe he's also the assistant. I think associate head coach is one of his titles.
That's just a title.
Yeah,
they just give those out to help them get promotions.
Well, never mind. No, he is just a linebackers coach, but he was the co-defensive coordinator at Washington. So there's a very good chance put it this way, there's a good chance he brings some other things to the room with Tim Banks, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you're being a little nice to William. Anyway, running backs coach Darrell Sims. Well, just one season at Tennessee. He had a Dylan Sampson. He did well with him. I don't know really how to judge him making $350,000, but I've got him at number 7. I do like what he did with Deshaun Bishop, but again, I mean, they're coached into the year, so it's a little oversimplifying it.
Yeah, he's been there for a year, and Dylan Sampson became an All-American and a Doak Walker finalist, and you've got him on a $350,000 salary. So in terms of value, I think he's a little higher than we're giving him credit for, honestly. I can't look. You and I are both not very big on giving running backs coaches credit for the play of the running backs. That's not something we really do.
Nah.
But there are some. I have in the past seen running backs coaches make a difference. We've talked about this, you and I. I couldn't pretend that Trooper Taylor didn't have anything to do with the fact that when he arrived at Tennessee in 2004, Tennessee got 2,000-yard rushers in a single season, and they struggled with their running game the year before. So maybe there is some difference in impact on the margin. So at $350, I think you're getting a really good value for him.
Look at Steve. Assistant coaches making bank these days. They are. We can talk about head coaching salaries all day, but the difference between when I started in this business in the late 90s and those guys were making like $75,000 with no contract, those days are over, Caleb. I mean, you're going to make a ton of bank, and you're probably going to get a contract if you're worth your salt whatsoever. So let's keep going. Who is next on the list?
Next on the list is offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach Joey Halsey. And man, do you have him low?
Well, okay. So here we go. Do I have him too low as the 8th best coach on Tennessee's staff? I don't think I do. And I almost dropped him below Willie Martinez. I know everybody would have freaked out about that. I'm not trying to jump on the bandwagon or go crazy or anything, but if there's ever been a puppet hire in the history of puppet hires, this is a puppet hire that ranks right up there with the Muppets. I mean, it is let's be honest. I mean, this is exactly what Josh Heupel wants, and that's a guy that's going to run his offense. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, I mean, I really can't disagree with you on that. I mean, honestly, it's working to his detriment, by the way, because he has no extra creativity in the room, and it's costing him. So I think that, look, I think there's a lot to fear with this long term. Josh Heupel is a little bit cocky, which is fine, but part of his cockiness is he thinks that he's the only guy that needs to know this offense in his mind, is the only one that matters. And we've talked about this before. He's not Steve Spurrier. He's not running. He's not like calling it play to play like Spurrier did. He's running a system. So if you're running a system, you need another creative mind in the room. So it's because there's always going to be that moment. I know it's cheesy. It's a terrible movie and it disgraces the game of football. But Remember the Titans, when Denzel Washington.
Never seen that movie.
Well, Denzel Washington runs the offense. He's the head coach. He runs the offense, but he hires Yost to run the defense. But Yost has a history as a football coach, so he gives Denzel a couple of his ideas, and Denzel runs his own system. And Denzel's like, "You worry about the defense. Let me worry about the offense." Well, in the championship game, Yost is like, "Look, you need to mix it up. I can help you here because we got to try to win this game." And he mixes it up just a bit. You need an extra creative mind in the room to help push your system a little bit sometimes, because there are going to be moments you need it.
At number 9, nobody says creative minds like Willie Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
Making $540,000. Still, I'm told, when I was doing some research on this column that's on offthehooksports.com, I was told that he is probably a more valuable recruiter than I was giving him credit for. But I do have him at number 9. I don't think there'll be a lot of argument about that. Number 10, I've got Lavorne Harbin. Chop is the new coach that's on the staff, $350,000. Evan Crabtree at just over $200,000, $225,000. He is the special teams coordinator. Any quibbles about my final 3, Caleb?
I might have Coach Chop higher. I know he's unproven, but I mean, Lavorne Harbin he's a proven talent evaluator, has experience across the SEC, and you're getting him at $350,000. I would have him all the way up at number 7, honestly, out of Darrell Sims.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Let's do this. I want to get your thoughts on this list. It's on offthehooksports.com. It includes the value, but it's not the value in terms of the ranking. It's what they mean to the staff. So let me get Caleb's thoughts as we broadcast live. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, broadcasting from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is your Super Dealer, just in time for Truck Month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford.
All right, so we all have multiple screens, so you can open up my story in the other screen, and then you can tell us right here what you think about my list as I rank Tennessee's assistant coaches. Caleb, what are your major gripes about my list?
Yeah, so I would have Coach Chop higher. I would definitely have him at number 7. I think Coach Chop is proven enough of a commodity to have him up there. I'm glad you and I are on.
I'll be honest with you. By default, I went with the new guys as the lowest because it was the least proven. So I got you there. I'm not going to argue that.
I might switch Kelsey Pope and Glenn Ellerby. I know that's a hot take. I know what Glenn Ellerby's done with Darnell Wright and Cooper Mays, but those were both like Cooper Mays was a fringe 4-star. Darnell Wright was a 5-star. Kelsey Pope turned Cedric Tillman into a 1,000-yard receiver, and he was a 2-star. So I can't ignore that. And he turned Jalen Hyatt into a Biletnikoff winner. Now, to be fair, Cooper Mays should have been the Remington winner. I'll just say that up front. He was the best center in college football last year, and there's not even...
Wait. The Remington people are calling me. They're incredibly upset that you said that. Hold on. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. You said like they were listening and they would call and complain. Go ahead.
Yeah, cool. So I'll say that. And so in that sense, Kelsey Pope, Glenn Ellerby both get credit for 2 players they've coached. But I might have Kelsey Pope a little bit higher just because we're still yet to see somebody start for Glenn Ellerby that Tennessee signed out of high school. I'm pretty sure we're going to see that this year with Kelsey Pope with Mike Matthews. Alec Ablin, but yeah, everything else I'm pretty much okay with all the way down, and including Joey Halsey. I mean, Joey Halsey's just not that valuable, guys. I'm sorry. It's you hate to say it, but you're right. That's a coordinator in name only title.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the associate head coach that we talked about earlier. Steve had this to say: I like hiring the grad assistants, bringing new guys in the fold. Well, he's okay. That's kind of 2 different things. Steve, I'm sorry, a little confused. He's not bringing new guys in the fold. He's bringing guys up through the system. Do you think that's problematic long term, Caleb?
So,
I'll be honest with you, I do.
I don't mind it if you do it a couple of times. I do mind it if you keep doing it constantly, which he's been doing. You know, you want to promote one guy that you think's done a great job as an analyst. That's fine. But it seems like he's doing it a lot more than others. And maybe he's doing it too much. But I mean, analysts, all-field guys, someone's got to give them their first job, right?
I guess. Derek says Tim Banks got a raise by calling cover 1 and cover 3 all year. The players got him paid. Well,
hey, Derek, spoiler alert about defense. Defensive coordinators are usually the players get them paid. They're not offensive coordinators.
Yeah, no, I would largely agree with that. I would also say this. I know that 2 schools made a real run at Tim Banks as a head coach. So you had to pay him and give him a bump. I get that. But I said from the get, I think that, and I'm going to stick by it, even if Tennessee gives up 55 points per game next year, I think Tim Banks is a very good coordinator. And I think I've said that early, Caleb, have I not?
You have. No, you have. You've done a very good job pointing that out. And you were on Tim Banks right after the South Carolina game 3 years ago when everybody, myself included, said that was a fireable offense, how bad the defense was in that game. You actually wrote a column saying, be careful what you wish for. Tim Banks, you don't want to lose him. And then we find out more that went into that game. I mean, South Carolina may have stolen some signs, and Jeremy Banks being out wrecked the whole defense. Just the combination of those things and may have had an impact. But yeah, so you were right. You were absolutely right. It was one of those a quick, because South Carolina, this is where you say all the time, Dave, like we talk about like investing in stock all the time. Don't freak out if there's a giant move in the markets one day, right? And sure. If you're investing, you got to do the same with coaches. One big example, just real quick, is I don't know if you know, before Derek Dooley hired Sal Sinceri as his defensive coordinator, which derailed his career, he was going to hire Kevin Steele. But then Kevin Steele went and gave up 70 points in the Orange Bowl, and he didn't feel like he could hire him. And I'm like, but Kevin Steele would have – that was one really bad game. Kevin Steele was still better than Sal Sinceri.
Adam has to say on the text box, if you can read that out.
Adam says you can promote from within as long as you allow creativity. The problem with promoting from within is when there's no room for innovation. Absolutely. Totally agree, Adam.
Totally agree. And I'm really afraid that Josh Heupel's headed down that road. And that's not to say that you can't detour off that road, but it is ultimately a dead-end path. But at some point, Nick Saban hired Lane Kiffin. So if that's to be the case, then when Nick Saban do that, that's fine. I'm not saying it's the end of his tenure as a Tennessee coach if things don't go well. I'm just saying that I think he's headed down the wrong path right now.
Yeah, and when Nick Saban, by the time he got established, he wasn't really hiring up-and-comers on his staff anymore. I mean, Nick Saban at LSU, and you remember this, Dave, Nick Saban in 2000 at LSU, his entire staff was up-and-comers, weren't they, when he first got to LSU?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
By 2010, he was hiring established guys everywhere. I mean, people wanted to go work for him.
Exactly. And I think this is, I guess, maybe another column for another day or later this afternoon. I think the underlying factor that we're not talking about Is there a greater concern that coaches don't want to come to Tennessee? Did they try to replace Willie Martinez but couldn't and had to stick with him? That's why they didn't release the information about his contract extension, and the News Sentinel had to dig it up. And that to me is the underlying factor. Is Tennessee still hot? Or let's look at Steve. Okay, let's stop with the Josh Heupel, Steve Spurrier comparisons for a second. But I will say this. Coaches largely did not like coaching for Steve Spurrier. They either liked working more than him, and he liked taking off at 5 or 6 in the afternoon for golf, or they were not as smart as him and they got ridiculed. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world if coaches don't want to coach for you, but I don't think we think Josh Heupel, Steve Spurrier anymore either.
No, we don't. But also Josh Heupel to be a defensive coach, one big difference though, where you might prefer to coach, for instance, for Spurrier, defenses have to be complementary to Josh Heupel and what he does. And that's not something a lot of them want to do. Whereas Spurrier, I mean, Dave, say what you want. Spurrier wasn't asking the defense to compliment him as he scores 70 points. No, he was setting up a system where if Spurrier needed to win a game 17-14, he did it. You know what I mean? He had no problem doing that if he had to.
Yep. And Matt says in the text box,
Heupel and Bright and John Bonamego to assist special team seems like a good addition. What do y'all think? A great one. That was a great pickup. I'm a big fan.
Yep. No doubt. And probably should have had him a little bit higher up on the list. And Caleb, again, if Banks isn't the guy, where does Tennessee go? I mean, do you think that they would be able? I kept thinking of who was the assistant that left for Cal?
Justin Wilcox.
Okay,
day, right?
Yeah, I kept thinking that was a big red flag. If Banks leaves, if Tim Banks leaves, is that a big red flag, or is that just
depends on what he leaves for? Depends on what he leaves for. Justin Wilcox left because 9 staff members left because Dave Hart came out and said, I'm not renewing any contracts for any staff members. Basically all but said Derek Dooley's on the hot seat this year. And so, of course, staff was going to bolt when he did that. So that's what happened there.
Yep. No doubt about it. Let's take a look at we've got a series of spring previews coming up. We'll take a look at Tennessee's quarterbacks now. Obviously, Nico Iamaleava is the topic of conversation. This has to be a big spring for Nico. Nico has got to have a monster spring, but I'm also curious as to who his backup will be, Caleb, because that is very much in question, given the fact that Jake Merklinger didn't start in front of Gaston Moore last year or play in front of Gaston Moore last year.
Yeah, I think that as we talk about Tennessee quarterbacks in spring practice, Nico Iamaleava is obviously the starter. I actually think it'd be shocking if George McIntyre doesn't take that second spot above Jake Merklinger. I think it'd be shocking.
Wow. So does that mean Merklinger's out? Does he see the writing on the wall in the summer, or does Josh Heupel try to hide it from him?
Oh, he sees the writing on the wall. And I don't think Josh Heupel would hide it from him. I mean, Taven Jackson saw the writing on the wall and hit the portal. Taven Jackson, Nico Iamaleava arrived in the winter of 2022. And like within 2 weeks after he was practicing, Taven Jackson bolted for the portal. So and Taven Jackson's not a bad quarterback. So I think Merklinger sees the writing on the wall. I think Merklinger is that type of quarterback. You're a fringe 4-star. You could be good. You go commit to play for a coach like Josh Heupel because of what he does with quarterbacks. And you say, maybe I can beat out somebody and maybe I could become the starter and I have a great chance to thrive. And then if it doesn't work out, you can go hit the portal and go find another school. I think some quarterbacks are willing to take that chance to go to, by the way, this would never have been the case back in the day before the transfer portal, right? Where you're willing to take the chance to be yeah. But now you can take that chance. And if it doesn't work, you can go hit the portal and go to another school that'll take you. And I don't think it's as big of a deal anymore.
Okay. So that brings me to my next question. And that is, do you trust Josh Heupel to make the right decision on quarterbacks? Because I've questioned his decision-making on Hooker and Milton, and then Milton and Nico. So we'll discuss that, brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
All right, I want to make it a poll question. Do you trust Josh Heupel's decisions on quarterbacks? Because I don't. I'm going to be real frank with you. I don't. And if he runs McIntyre or runs Merklinger, would it stun me if one of those guys has a fantastic career elsewhere? No, it wouldn't. Because what I've seen from Josh Heupel is the decision to play Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker, and then a decision to play Milton over Nico, which we can debate about that, but I wouldn't have done. So as we preview the quarterbacks heading into spring, do you trust Josh Heupel's decision-making process when it comes to signal callers?
Yes, because Josh Heupel's much more objective when it's just his guys. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but the problem with Hendon Hooker from the start was Josh Heupel.
Okay, that's good stuff. I just had to stop you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, look, the whole thing with Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker. Heupel, I'm going to tell you guys something that I think happened with Josh Heupel and Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton. I think Josh Heupel went after Joe Milton from the moment he set foot on campus at Tennessee before he realized what quarterbacks he had, before he knew who he had at quarterback.
Well, no, I can confirm that's the case.
Yeah. And so he went hard after him. If you remember, it was almost like a too close of a situation. Joe Milton wasn't able to practice in the spring, but during the spring game, Joe Milton was there standing next to Heupel the whole time. And it almost looked like he was like coach's pet. Like, this is my guy. You know what I mean? It felt like an Ed Orgeron, Brent Schaefer moment. And so I felt with all that in mind, Josh Heupel made such a public spectacle of signing Joe Milton that to save face his first year as head coach of Tennessee, he felt he would look real bad if he didn't name Joe Milton the starter at the beginning of 2021, because then everybody would be like, well, you went all in on this guy and you can't even name him the starter. But, you know, you look back and I mean, that was a disastrous, catastrophic decision. And not long-term, he moved to Hendon Hooker, but I think what was so bad about it, Dave, was that I don't think there was ever a real competition between Milton and Hooker. I don't. And I know some people say it may have been 55-45. No, I think I'm just going to tell you up front from some things I've heard. I think it was 80-20 Hendon Hooker, and he still went with Joe Milton.
Yeah, and it's funny how you mentioned that as far as the first team snaps, because you can completely orchestrate a quarterback competition or lack thereof if you want to, just by practice snaps. If you give one guy 90% and the other guy 10%, the guy with 90% is going to have more touchdown passes. He may have more interceptions too, but it's easy to, like, we'll talk about spring practice and we'll get into it. And this is our spring preview of the quarterbacks, and we'll have running backs tomorrow. But the thing you have to remember is that spring is all about just dudes running around, getting better. And it's not going to be about, as far as the depth chart, it's not going to be about anything in terms of scheme. Caleb, that's kind of where you are in spring.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're just trying to help guys get in like football shape and rhythm and see what you can work with. And maybe some guys learn the system. But yeah, since the whole Joe Milton thing, see, we can debate 2023. I don't mind it as much as you did, keeping Joe Milton the starter in 2023. I think he's handled quarterbacks well since then. I think it was just his arrogance and his determination to be right outweighed what was good for the team in 2021. And he won't have that issue now.
Okay. It's interesting, like a clean slate. What did Adam say in the text box?
Maybe Merck will be Tennessee's Stetson Bennett. Adam, there's one flaw in that. And you give a lot of great points, Adam. So I'm not knocking you here, but where I disagree is that Stetson Bennett was kind of like T. Martin. Good leader, good quarterback, but managed a loaded amount of talent around him.
Okay.
And
but
look, I'm just saying, like,
way more talented.
Huh?
I think T. Martin was way more talented than Stetson Bennett.
No, but what I mean is, like, they were both like they both did a great job handling and using the talent around them, leaning on it. The quarterback, and Dave, I think you'll agree with me on this. At Tennessee, the quarterback's not there to lean on the talent. They're there to grab the talent and to carry the talent on their back, right? And it's a bit of a difference.
Now, you would think, and latest mention in the text box, what do we got?
I trust Hype, but he is a bit too loyal at times.
What was the poster's name?
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that name.
I don't know what that name means. What does that mean? Is that a bad name?
Tethalta 1. I'm not going to say.
Tethalta. Not like you were about to say it the first time. Hit like and subscribe if you find Caleb's uncomfortable nature.
What are you? Okay.
Yeah, it started with TIT, so Caleb just went crazy.
Crazy.
All right, so getting back to our message board, one last thing from Derek, and just live or die with it. Feel the same way about the offense since Hendon left. Is this offense going to ever be as great as it was in 2022? And does it have to be for Josh Heupel to have success?
No, it does not. But yes, it will.
No, it does not. Yes,
it does not have to be as great as it was in 2022 for him to have success, but it will be as great as it was in 2022. I think the thing that we need to give Josh Heupel more credit for was one of the things he did last year is there were so many teams played that soft man, that 3-3-5, and Josh Heupel finally said, "You guys want that? I will run it, and you won't stop me." And keep running that 3-3-5.
A lot of times, Caleb and I, at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting, we don't discuss these things. So it's interesting that he and I completely agree. I thought that Josh Heupel's offensive approach last year was as good as 2022.
I agree. 2022, it was more impressive, honestly. 2022 was a system that he had run that a lot of people hadn't figured out, and he had a great quarterback to run it, a veteran quarterback, a sixth-year senior playing on it. So, no, last year was actually more impressive, as good as we think Nico is. I think last year reset the clock, so you're going to see teams, put it this way. I think because of the hype behind Nico and Heupel's offense, you had teams sell out to make sure Nico didn't beat them deep this past year. I think now he's kind of fallen off in his resume, and I think you're in his reputation, and you're going to see a lot more teams cheat up in the box next year. So I think there's going to be a lot more deep balls for Nico to hit on next year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. That's our spring preview talking Tennessee quarterbacks, brought to you by our friends at Commercial Bank. Bank on it, Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial.
All right, Caleb, give us a tease for coming up this day in Tennessee sports history.
This day in Tennessee sports history is a birthday for a very underrated player of a certain era in a certain sport.
Okay, that's a pretty good tease there. I'll take that. All right, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. That means great selection. That means great deals. They absolutely have the buying process down pat. I love them. Check them out. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln on Parkside or Kingston Pike.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Need a haircut, Caleb. It's going to look like Futurama, isn't it?
Talking about me?
No, I need a haircut. Mine's going spiky. It gets boofy. Does your hair? When do you know you need a haircut? Mine's boofy. Like it gets poof.
I don't know. I just feel it whenever I feel like I need a haircut.
Make it a poll question. What's our latest poll question, by the way?
Let's see. Latest poll question is: do you trust Josh Heupel's decisions on quarterbacks? Yes, 69%. No, 31%.
Okay, I got one for you. What's the most you've ever paid for a haircut? Okay, let's go $10, $25, $50. Have you ever paid $50 for a haircut?
$50 for a haircut? Yeah, I paid $50. I've paid $50.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that would be unusual.
No.
No, I paid $50 at Manhattan Beach when Tennessee was playing UCLA. And they also gave me one of those straight shave things. You do not want that when you go to the beach. You talk about instant, like, just the, what's it called?
Oh, gosh.
The skin or the razor burn. Razor burn. I've never had razor burn until that day. And I got a straight shave, went to the beach, and all the sand got in. It was horrible.
What about I mean, you should have just talked to Derek. Well, this is before Derek Dooley was hired, but Derek Dooley had great haircuts. He probably taught that's probably one of the things he focused on with his players, how to cut your hair. I know shower discipline was a real big thing for Derek Dooley.
It was a big thing. I mean, man, there are 2 press conferences like I missed. I should say media availabilities. And that was one. It wasn't a press conference. He was just in front of a bunch of reporters. The other one is Josh McNeil explaining why he had 3 women in this bedroom at night.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know. And knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, what do we got? And by the way, Matt asked about could Star Thomas start for us this year. We'll discuss Star when we preview Tennessee's running backs as spring practice set to start March the 7th, right around the corner. But first, tell me about this day in Tennessee sports history.
Yeah, it's a happy 38th birthday to one with one of the best names of all time, Julio Bourbon. Julio Bourbon, but I like to say Julio Bourbon because bourbon sounds cool, and he played for Tennessee. He was a baseball player for Tennessee. This is his 38th birthday. He was part of that 2005 freshman team that went to the team loaded with freshmen that went to the College World Series. Then he got drafted by the Texas Rangers, played for them for 4 years, the Cubs for a year, and the Baltimore Orioles for a year.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Adam had a good comment there. Said our worst coaches had the cleanest haircuts.
Yeah, but they don't. I mean, Jeremy Pruitt had no hair, and Butch Jones had a terrible haircut. It was clean, but it was terrible.
Yeah, that's called an $8 haircut. So I don't know that they had the cleanest haircuts or even a good haircut. General Ursa says if Dooley worried about coaching like he did everything else in life, he would probably still be here. That's true. I've told the story before where he went outside on one of the first days and said, first days in the office, and said, that guy's not plastering the wall correctly. Let me do it. What? Hemp House, the premier hemp. Yes, sorry.
He was named athletic director at Louisiana Tech for 2 years because he kept talking about all these other different type of things that should be done. He didn't
I know, but that's a huge red flag that you made the wrong hire.
No, I agree. He was focused on, he apparently went to the athletic director and was the previous athletic director at Louisiana Tech his first year. And he talked about designs that need to be done for the football stadium. And I'm like, this is not your wheelhouse, bro.
Yeah. Was Derek High, Hemp House, brought to you, Derek Dooley's haircut brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. HOOK for 10% off. So, Caleb, we dive into the SEC Big Ten meeting takeaways. And the biggest thing that I take away from it is that there's talk, and I don't believe it, but there's talk that they could actually seed 1 through 12, just a natural seeding, and not have 4 Big Ten teams, 4 SEC lock teams. I love the idea. I don't think they'll do it.
Well, they're not done with the 4 SEC, 4 Big Ten lock teams for 2026. Right. Yeah, that could still be part of it. They just want to seed 1 through 12, and they want to do that this year. Here's the thing, and this is so clear, and I wrote a column on this if you guys want to read it online now. The SEC and Big Ten jumped into this college football playoff expansion without thinking, and ever since then, they've just been reacting, and then in the process of reacting, they are perpetually chasing their tails.
Totally agree.
And
I could actually not put it in any better terms than what you just said. And by the way, the column is in the message board if you'd like to read it. Go ahead.
So why are they wanting to do this seeding 1 through 12? The biggest reason is they're worried, and this happened last year, that there was an incentive to lose the conference title games, which I'm pretty sure Penn State did on purpose last year, because you had an easier road as the 6th seed playing SMU and Boise State than you did as Oregon as the number 1 seed winning the Big Ten title and having to play Ohio State as your first team. This seeding is so out of whack. You actually were incentivized to be a lower seed. So they're like, oh, we'll fix it by seeding 1 through 12. Dave, here's the problem. If you seeded 1 through 12, the top 4 seeds, the first round buys, would have all been the teams that played for the SEC and Big Ten title last year. And I think you and I both agree that would probably be the case every year, right? The top 4 seeds would be the 4 teams to play for the Big Ten and SEC title every single year.
But we had Jimmy Holmes on yesterday. I thought he brought up a great point, not to divert, but the SEC was close to having more than the Big Ten significantly because they had probably the 3 strongest outliers, right?
Right.
I think that's what the Big Ten was afraid of or is afraid of.
Well, yeah, but no, this is just about the seeding 1 through 12. Let's just stick with the seeding 1 through 12 real quick.
Okay.
So again, seeding 1 through 12 outright. There would be more SEC teams in the playoff overall at 16. I'm talking about the top 4. The top 4 would 100% of the time be the 2 teams to play for the SEC and the 2 teams to play for the Big Ten titles, right?
Well, are we assuming that the Big 12 and nobody else is involved? Are we going?
I'm saying just the top 4 seeds. The top 4 of ranking 1 through 4. 1 through 4.
No, I can't. No, I think that there would be a Big 12 team in there.
But see, that didn't happen this past year. The top 4 teams were not the top 4 seeds, but the top 4 ranked teams in the college football playoff because they want to seed this based straight off ranking. The top 4 ranked teams were the 2 teams that played for the SEC title and the 2 teams that played for the Big Ten title. You follow me on that?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Go ahead.
Okay, so here that would be the case more often than not. Do you not agree?
Yes.
Okay, so If that's the case more often than not, then you just devalued and killed the Big Ten and SEC title games even more than you planned to. Because, Dave, if you're a team playing for if you're Texas or Georgia playing for the SEC championship, and win or lose, you're getting a first round bye, why are you going to waste your energy playing that SEC title game?
Let me tell you why I love and hate you. I love you because you make some really good takes ahead of the curve. But I hate you because you're right. And I hate that conference championships are devalued. And I can't believe I'm saying this just a year into this thing. We're a year into the playoffs, and I'm saying they don't matter at all.
No.
I would love to argue otherwise and sit here and say, Caleb, you were wrong. I told you last year it still matters to hoist that trophy. It doesn't.
No.
I've talked to players about it. They don't look at it like it's anything significant.
Exactly. And college football did this to itself. And the funny thing is, we talk about it as we're talking about it here. This is the irony. They want to seed 1 through 12 because they think that'll make their conference title games matter more. It's going to make them matter less. And I mean,
I don't even know why they're having them.
The one way you could make the conference title games actually matter and put significant value on it?
$5 million per player.
Yeah, well, you don't just get a first round bye if you win. You get a home playoff game in the second round. You get to play the second round at home.
Okay, but let me ask you for realsies. What about what I just said?
$5 million per player.
Okay, but let's be real, like with numbers. What if you said you get $100,000 bonus if you win this game? Why is that not done? Because those numbers are more manageable than you could say 100,000 per starter.
Well, you have to incentivize the coach. The coach may still not want to win the game.
Well, the coach is already incentivized. It's already in his contract. Yeah, I mean, Heupel and all those guys. I mean, they get extra money for winning championships, so that happens. Joe Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. JoeNewbertCollision.com. Am I crazy to say, Caleb, that if you doled out, I don't know, a couple of $1 million per team or promise that per team that they play a little bit harder?
But what does it do for the fans? The fans don't want to see. This is the thing. They're not all in this together because, the players will get paid, but the fans don't really care if they win the conference title. They'd rather the starters be rested for the playoff. So that's just something for the players to feel good, but it's not going to make the fans happy. And a part of this is about the fans. I mean, I'm not like college football. All sports are driven by the fans and what they care about. You still haven't fixed the issue of the fans not caring if they win the conference title game. And here's the other point, Dave. The players are going to play for $5 million. It's about the networks and the ratings. They got to make the game matter to the fans somehow. Because right now, I know this. Networks are very upset at the lack of interest in the SEC and Big Ten title games last year. That's not what they signed up for with this. They thought there'd be more interest.
Well, I agree with that, but
the SEC and Big Ten have promised them certain levels of revenue from those games. And so they got to find a way to make those games matter.
Okay, could you sell this like a Jake Paul, Mike Tyson thing? The winner gets whatever it is, $5 million per team. And the loser gets a big nothing, which we know in retrospect, Tyson didn't even fight. It was a complete joke. But if you sold it like that, winner take all, as in $5 million. Is that the worst idea? It's cheesy. I know it's cheesy. But you're talking to the guy who tips the guy at the Apple store.
You know what I'd rather see, if I'm being honest with you? Scrap the conference title games. If you're going to go Mike Tyson, Jake Paul, just have the team that finishes first in the SEC and the team that finishes first in the Big Ten, have them each play the bottom two teams in the NFL.
All right. Here's what Adam has to say. He's taking you to task. You want to read that for us, or just
Adam? Adam goes, Caleb, I want the Vols to win every game and play every weekend. Don't speak for me when you say the fans want us to sit out games and rest. Okay, Adam, that's just
Amen.
you.
No, that's me too.
I'm sorry. we're all from, and I say I'm this way. I'm from a different generation too, where we all value the conference title game. First of all, the conference title game didn't exist until 1992. So the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, there was no conference title. You just won your conference based on where the thing finished in the regular season. And college football got along great, by the way, when that was happening. So I look back and I'm thinking, okay, the tradition of the conference title games, guys, the value's not there. I'm sorry. And what they're proposing here is not a good thing. And people are, here's the hardcore truth that they just can't wrap their brains around. You can't expand a playoff and still have the conference title games matter. The two things are diametrically opposed to each other. You either like the reason the conference title games were such a big deal during the BCS and 14 playoff era was because you kind of had to win that to get into the playoff, no matter where you were. So
it's the hot girlfriend thing. The two don't get along. Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service, automotive, brakes, alignments. They've got it all. Oil changes as well. QualityTirePros.com. Stop by and tell Bo that Dave Hooker said, hey, Bo. Also, Caleb said, hey, Bo. Cam Newton says Aaron Hernandez is a saint. Yes, coming up, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas. Your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing? Therapeutic? Absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7.
Like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Kayla Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I love that rejoin, but when she says Frank, like the name, it now makes me think of that new Genesis commercial. Oh my gosh, is that Frank Thomas? Honey, I wish you looked like that. He's so big and buff. Yeah, it's troubling. Have you watched it now since?
No, I have not.
Okay, I'm going to send you a link and you watch it and you'll be like, does my wife like Frank Thomas? You'll wonder that out loud. All right, so quick from the message board before we get to our next topic. Caleb, what do we got in the text box?
Adam is asking, Dave, is 1992 not when the SEC began to emerge as the premier conference?
That's a fair point. And your argument is that championship games don't matter, and I hate to agree with you, but I do. But he brings up a fair point.
Well, yes, actually, I would agree. But what you're forgetting is that at that time, and then the real big one was actually when the SEC signed its contract with CBS in 1996. That's what really happened. The SEC contract with CBS. What that did, though, in case we're forgetting,
Vernon Lundquist stumbled to the press box.
Yep, Sean McDonough was the first one, by the way, to do it, and then Vernon Lundquist took McDonough's spot.
Do you remember Jefferson Pilot Sports? Are you that old?
Oh gosh, yeah, I remember Jefferson.
Oh yeah, that was some bad stuff. I saw that on YouTube recently. I didn't know that that's broadcasting.
Yeah, they had that Brooks and Dunn song to open the games. That was so bad. Anyways, so not to knock Brooks and Dunn, but that was a bad song. But the SEC on CBS deal made the SEC financially competitive with the Big Ten schools, and as recruiting got more national, it oddly, funny enough, got more regional because the SEC schools all got enough money to basically what was happening. The reason the Big Ten and the West Coast and the Nebraskas were dominating, and Dave, you know this, like Nebraska was coming into Louisiana, for instance, and getting kids out of Louisiana, and Colorado was going into Georgia and getting kids out of Georgia. And once the SEC got its deal with CBS, Georgia
Colorado
kids
was going into LA.
Yeah, they were particularly going into LA. But once the SEC got its deal,
Compton. No, there were a lot of guys, literally.
But they were also, I mean, they got Cordell Stewart out of Louisiana.
True.
But what happened? Once the SEC on CBS deal hit, Louisiana had enough recruiting budget to not let the kids get out of LSU. By the way, that SEC on CBS deal hurt Tennessee because Tennessee used to pluck talent. And you know this, Dave. They plucked talent from South Carolina and from Georgia and from Florida and here because they recruited national. What did the SEC on CBS deal do? Gave all the other teams a recruiting budget to be able to recruit those, to be able to wall off their areas.
So earlier in the chat, I thought Steve nailed it, and I'm sorry I took it down, but he said, I'd like to see the SEC versus Big Ten in 4 regular season games. I would too. You know who
I want to
does
see a full Big Ten challenge, SEC Big Ten challenge.
Exactly. I want to see a weekend that's Thursday, like before the NFL starts. That's Thursday through Sunday. And it is Thursday night, Friday night, 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. SEC Big Ten. That's what I want.
That should be the opening to college football. SEC versus Big Ten to open like Labor Day weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
I'm telling you, if I could be on air all the time, I'd come up with more great ideas.
No, that would be great. The problem is it's not incentivized now. And if you do it the way that the Big Ten is proposing, which by the way, the SEC is resistant to this, but the Big Ten is out here proposing auto bids per conference. What's the point of these interconference games if like they don't have any impact on the playoff?
Okay. Do you want me to tell you if it's an opening game week, how you can monetize it? Well, you said incentivize it, but I think it monetize it. Ireland. Germany, Brazil. Listen, these people are so starved for football. They love it when the Jaguars show up. So hold it wherever you need to hold it and make a ton of money. And the players, it's an experience just like basketball teams do when they do this French-German tour thing that they always do, or Italy, or the stuff that I have no idea why you'd spend that much money on basketball. But anyway, you could spend it on football.
See, I kind of like it more at like the NFL stadiums though. Like I love like I forget what the major NASCAR race is on Labor Day weekend, but there is one. You guys can tell me which one it is. There's a big race Labor Day weekend that usually happens. I'd love like the premier game to be where that race is. Like it's probably near a college football stadium. NASCAR Labor Day race. You guys tell me which one it is. It's I think that's when the Chase Cup starts too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, NASCAR was irrelevant about 15 years ago. Nathaniel says, so just move bowl games. No, I think it's just time to just cut them. Done. And I've been around the bureaucracy of bowl games, so I can give you a little bit of insight. It's all about old dudes making more money. That's all it's about. It's not about football. They don't care who shows up. They just care about, I mean, Tennessee has gotten the benefit of the doubt how many times, Caleb, and gotten into a better situation, a better bowl because they travel so well.
No, that's very true. You're right.
If you care about the competitive nature of the sport, you wouldn't do that.
I totally agree. It's not pretending the bowl. But to be fair, one bowl that does care about the competitive nature of the sport is the Rose Bowl. Say what you want about the Rose Bowl. You go to that game, they hold firm to tradition. And we should all be praising the Rose Bowl because they don't bow to the corporate interests that run college football. They don't.
But that's the only one.
Yeah, every other bowl does it. The Rose Bowl this year kicked off at 2:00. It was a playoff game. There was a playoff game before then. I'm sorry, kicked off at 5. There was a playoff game before then and went into overtime. Traditional TV networks are like, we can't start this one until this one ends. The Rose Bowl was like, nope, we are kicking off at our time, and we don't care if it cuts into the other team's playoff game. This is when we start, and you got a problem with it? Kiss our you-know-what.
Yeah, but they're the only one. The Peach Bowl, when it got bought out by the Chick-fil-A Bowl, there was no more fun media stuff. It was
but I wish the Sugar Bowl would strong arm that way.
It was just about eating Chick-fil-A sandwiches. And I like Chick-fil-A, but at the end of the week, oh, Lord. I mean, you can only take so much fried chicken.
Yeah, but I wish the Sugar Bowl and the Cotton Bowls would strong arm that way. Now, the Cotton Bowl, to be fair, what happened to the Cotton Bowl? They lost all their leverage when the Southwest dissolved because they were tied to the Southwest Conference. So they lost all their power when that happened. But like the Sugar Bowl could play that way. The Orange Bowl could play that way. They don't. The Rose Bowl does. And I am raising a glass to the Rose Bowl right now because they say they stick their middle fingers up to the billionaires that run college football every day. And I love it.
Yeah. Steve says Ohio State, Georgia in the season opener. Yeah, I'm loving this idea. Maybe we dive into this a little bit deeper tomorrow. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry, a Tennessee tradition. They're awesome. RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. Stat of the day brought to you by Sports Treasures.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, what do you got? Stat of the day, Caleb.
We're at SECs right now for Tennessee swimming, but I had to bring a Tennessee swimming stat up to you, Dave. I'm not even kidding. The Tennessee men's 200 free relay shattered an NCAA record with their performance yesterday by clocking in a time of 1:12:80. The original record was 1:13:35. So they absolutely cleaned house on the 200 free relay, shattering the record in the fastest time ever. And when you break a record like that, you've got to get called out if you're representing Tennessee.
Okay.
By the way, I've got, we talk about swimmers' bodies and things like that. I've been told that
we've never talked about swimmers' bodies. What the hell are you talking about?
I've been told I look like Patty Pimblett, Dave, just recently, and I just want you to tell me. He's a UFC fighter.
I don't know who Patty Pimblett is. Pull up a picture of Patty.
Do I look like Patty Pimblett?
No, Sports Treasures carrying
whatever.
Okay, I want to get to that. Patty Pimblett, Sports Treasures carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates. Just go to facebook.com, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN. Okay. What the hell?
What?
I look like Patty Pimblett.
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I may redivert. Can we see that picture of Patty Pimblett's again? I mean, that's what stuck out to me.
What, his abs?
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't seen you shirtless, but I'm pretty sure you don't have abs like that. And I hope you would say, and you never will.
I probably will never have abs like this, unless they're painted on.
Good Lord. All right. Is that painted on? Do they do that?
I don't know, but they look kind of. He's 30. How do you have those how do you have those when you're not in your 20s anymore?
I got a buddy that is doing pretty good for 60. Has borderline abs. Yeah, I'll give him a shout out. Fish. Yeah. He's got pretty good abs and he's 60. So it can be done. But I think there's some photoshopping going on. Caleb, what the H? Aaron Hernandez is an absolute angel. How did we mischaracterize him so much?
The side of Aaron Hernandez they don't want you to see.
Right. The positive side. Cam Newton, former Auburn quarterback, former NFL quarterback, former I don't like to be interviewed quarterback, said that Aaron Hernandez was a great man. Or expound on that, please.
So Aaron Hernandez was on the Coach JB show. I'm sorry, not Aaron Hernandez. Wow, listen to me. Cam Newton was on the Coach JB show and said that he struggled to reconcile the person he knew in college with the Aaron Hernandez who made national headlines. By the way, because for those who don't remember, Cam Newton was at Florida with Aaron Hernandez before Cam Newton got kicked off. By the way, I just want to point this out real quick. Aaron Hernandez was murdering people when he was at Florida too. So let's just get that out the way.
Yeah. Nope, no argument.
So,
and I'm kind of your fact checker on stuff like this because you like to go out there, but no argument.
Yep. And so basically, he was kind of referencing when Cam Newton was referencing kind of when he got kicked off the team for stealing the laptops, which I still want to know what drugs he was on when he did that. Honestly, I still want to know what he was doing that made him want to go steal a laptop. And then when police come, he throws it out the window. He's like, now that it's out the window, y'all don't have the evidence. When they saw him throw it out the window.
I mean, who was the Tennessee football player who got arrested literally at the gates of Neyland Stadium with a stolen laptop?
I don't know who was it.
They were able to trace it back. I don't remember, but we can look it up another time. Go ahead with your point.
So, anyways, he basically acknowledged that Aaron Hernandez was the one who would check up on him and reach out to him. And Cam Newton's quote is, quote, "I knew the 16, 17, 18, and 19-year-old Aaron Hernandez. On my soul, on my firstborn, there was only one person from my University of Florida roster that ever checked up on me, and it was him. He was the biggest jokester, one of the most fun-loving people I've ever been around. That tells you a lot about the kind of relationship we had and how much we cared for each other."
Okay. Why is Cam Newton saying this, just for the record?
I don't know, but it goes even crazier.
Okay, because if I'm Florida, I don't want him saying this, but I don't really have any control over him.
No, not at all.
And I think he's trying to push a broadcasting career, and I don't think it's going very well. That's why he's saying
no. So he said, he adds to it, Hernandez showed me something very different from what the public remembers. Quote, "He loved hard. He was a guy who kept to himself. He went through things we now recognize as trauma, like losing his father." By the way, I empathize or sympathize with people who lose their father. That doesn't usually make you a serial killer. He was extremely close to his brother, his aunt, and the entire 2007 recruiting class. We were all together alongside the Pouncey twins and Joe Hayden. People don't remember what you did for them as much as they remember how you made them feel. I know how Aaron Hernandez made me feel as a friend, a teammate, in person. Yeah, that's the end of it.
Okay, this sounds like a PR person that has told him to say something that would be incendiary and get us talking. It really does. I mean, or is he just that stupid? I mean, you wouldn't say that, would you?
I mean, we're talking about the Cam Newton that a couple of weeks ago said that he would rather have his MVP trophy than a Super Bowl ring. And he said that on First Take. He said he said that he doesn't regret not winning a Super Bowl because he got his MVP, and that I'd rather, if he had to choose between the two, he'd take his MVP over a Super Bowl ring.
Make it a poll question. Which would you rather have, Super Bowl ring or NFL MVP? What do you think about that?
There you go. Yeah. So Cam Newton, I think, he's on First Take now on Fridays. He brings some sizzle to the show. I agree. He's trying to make a broadcasting career out of what he's doing, but he's just even the entertaining shock jock stuff. I think he's trying to go maybe the Charles Barkley or Shannon Sharp route. He's just not as good at it, honestly, because Shannon Sharp will, or let's take Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley will say something ridiculous, crazy, funny, but then he'll flesh out what he's saying, and you're like, he's kind of got a point. You know what I mean? You may not even agree with it, but you're like, okay, I see where you're coming from. Cam Newton is just saying ridiculous stuff now. And I mean, you're right. Why is he covering for Aaron Hernandez? I mean, even Tim Tebow just knows not to say it. Tim Tebow knows not to say anything. Is just quiet about it. Most of the players from that team. It's funny, one Cam Newton wasn't even on Florida except for a year. Well, no, it was 2 years, but he gets dismissed. And so he's on Florida for 2 years. And I'm thinking, you never started at Florida, but it almost feels like he's trying to remind the world that Aaron Hernandez went to Florida. But
no, okay. So I'm going to tell you how Cam Newton, or why Cam Newton wasn't a Vol. Okay. And you can bank on it. And it's brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, Life Made Better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial.
All right, Caleb, do you know why Cam Newton wasn't a Vol?
Well, I know Lane Kiffin didn't want him, but I don't know the full story beyond that.
Okay, Jim Chaney, the offensive coordinator at the time, went to Blinn Community College, where Cam Newton was the quarterback. By the way, General Ursa says Super Bowl ring, but MVP wouldn't be a bad consolation prize. So go ahead and vote on our poll question. But here's what happened. Cam Newton was suspended for the first half of the game that they played in. And that was the game that Jim Chaney was at. And Lane Kiffin said, this sounds incredibly ironic, but Lane Kiffin said, I'm not going to take a guy with questionable character issues in a leadership position. And they didn't take him.
That is kind of crazy to think back on.
100%. I mean, the source is impeccable. You know what I mean by impeccable, right?
Yes. I know exactly what you mean by that.
At least that's from the source. Now, the source could be misleading me because they know I'm a reporter, but right? I mean,
here's my problem.
This is during his recruitment before Auburn said we wouldn't take him.
Part of this seems like Lane Kiffin's arrogance because the previous coaching staff, Philip Fulmer's staff, was recruiting Cam Newton. And that's the biggest reason, because let's be honest with Lane Kiffin for a minute. Oh, not going to take a guy in leadership with questionable character. What was Tyler Bray, who Lane Kiffin went after?
Well, in retrospect, very questionable character, but I do wonder if that was more showing up with no leadership on campus as opposed to coming out of high school. Do you know? I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know.
Okay, but even if that's the case, do you think Lane Kiffin would have been the guy to straighten out Tyler Bray if you have character issues? I mean,
Button Squirrel Sports likes some Bulldogs, Georgia. All of a sudden, I don't feel so bad about Georgia being dumb enough to recruit Cam as a tight end. Okay, well, yeah, that may be dumber. Which is dumber?
That's pretty dumb. I mean, Lane not taking him is dumb too. I mean, look, Cam Newton,
you make wrong decisions on character a lot. So that is not unusual.
But that 2010 season, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Dave, but I think that's the greatest solo act in the history of college football.
No, I agree.
2010 season.
If you wanted to say Johnny Manziel's last season, but
that was close too. But they lost 4 games. But it's not Johnny Manziel's fault they lost 4 games, which you're right. But like Cam Newton just single-handedly went. I've never seen a player by himself go win a national championship in football. But Cam Newton actually can say he pulled that off. I mean, that defense was horrible. He had no receiver. I mean, I think Auburn had like 6 guys from that team go to the NFL, which like Tennessee probably had more players in 2010 going to the NFL. And that's when Tennessee was bad. So I had to take him, and I would have just like that was the type of player you just give him the reins and let him go. Him and Gus Malzahn together, that was such a deadly combination in 2010. And I mean, looking back at Fulmer had let Gus Malzahn be offensive coordinator at Tennessee, and then goes hands off. Gus Malzahn probably lands Cam Newton, and guess what? Fulmer has 2 national championships on his resume at this point.
Agree with that. Here we go. Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. We're going to talk some Lady Vols right now. Hot or Cold, brought to you by cityheatandair.com.
Where do you stand? Hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. Cityheatandair.com. On Off the Hook Sports.
Morphing this a bit, how hot is the national media on Kim Caldwell and the Lady Vols? It sounds weird to put it like that. But anyway, you know what I mean.
They're pretty hot on her. They're pretty hot on her. Kim Caldwell has been named to the Naismith Women's College Coach of the Year watch list. One of 6 SEC coaches. She's in there with Gina Auriemma, Kenny Brooks, Mark Campbell, Corey Close, Nell Fortner, Lindsey Gottlieb, Neil Ivey, Kevin McGough, Jeff Mitty, Wes Moore, Kim Mulkey, Shay Ralph, Vic Schaefer, and Dawn Staley are on that list.
All right, hit like and subscribe if you don't mind. So is the national media too hot on Tennessee and the Lady Vols? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning.
I don't really think so.
I don't either. They seem to think they're a Sweet 16 or better team, and I think they're that, aren't they?
Yeah. I think the closest one is to Kim Caldwell right now is Kenny Brooks, who I think probably will earn Coach of the Year at Kentucky. Just for those who don't know, last year Kentucky was 12-20. Kenny Brooks got there, and they this year are now ranked number 14, which is ahead of Tennessee, and 20-4, 9-3 in the SEC. But it's not too hot on the Lady Vols to put Kim Caldwell in there as potential Coach of the Year candidate. If not for Kenny Brooks doing an incredible job her first year, we'd really be talking about her for Coach of the Year. So no, I don't think they're too hot on her. And also the NCAA net rankings are even higher, Dave, because Tennessee currently holds a number 11 ranking in the NCAA net rankings, which would pan out to a number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament if that happened. And their attendance is climbing back up again. So I think Kim Caldwell, she's getting more and more national press. And let's be fair here. Here's the biggest reason she's winning people over. It's not just the early success and the excitement. It is the recruiting. And I'm usually not big on that. Like, I don't know if you remember Dave Butch Jones won over the fan base pretty early because he had a top 5 recruiting class coming in the next year.
Yes, which he manufactured, but that's fine.
Yes, he did manufacture. That is true.
He actually yelled at recruiting reporters, 2 of which quit their jobs because he thought that his players deserved more stars. Go ahead.
See, no, that's why you knew he was a sociopath before any of us knew that. That wasn't out there. That wasn't out there for us at all to know.
I mean, we can have him on the show. Want to numbers?
Yeah. So, that doesn't surprise me knowing him.
Dog custom. There's just a rule, Caleb. Like, I will say, don't act like a jerk, but I wouldn't say you're a jerk. I mean, that's the rule, isn't it?
Yes, that is exactly. Yeah. So Caldwell, I don't think she's doing that. I don't think she has the pull to do that. She just has a number 1 class coming in, and people see the success she's already having running a system with players who weren't fully a fit for her system and her resume before this year. There's a lot more evidence to believe in her. And so the splash truly is her recruiting next year that makes her so exciting with this brand about. Because, I mean, honestly, this isn't like, it's not like what she's doing this year is not like significantly better than what Kelly Harper was doing. It's just you see what's coming in the future, pretty much.
Okay, so let me ask you this. I got 3 things for you. It's style of play, it's her and her persona, and then the last is the potential versus preseason expectations. Are you hot or cold on that? Brought to you by City Heating and Air. CityHeatandAir.com. Over 50 years in East Tennessee. They'll service your unit and make absolutely sure that you don't overspend. Other companies won't do that. CityHeatandAir.com. Hot or cold, Lady Vols in 30.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
All right, Caleb, hot or cold on those 3 things I just threw at you, and that is number 1, style of play. Surely you're hot.
Hot. I'm hot on that. I mean, it's also just a breath of fresh air for the Lady Vols because they lived and died by the Summit tradition of defensive rebounding. It just got tiring over the course of a period of time.
Now, let me ask you this. Kim Caldwell, we're not trying to say whether or not she's hot, okay? We're not going to talk about Josh Heupel's look, so we wouldn't do it. So we're not doing that. But her persona, the way she carries herself, I'm extremely hot on. Sounds so weird. I don't know. I'm writing the column after the game tonight, and she gives me the Pat Summitt vibe, and I don't want to go there, and I think it's unfair, but I'm going there.
No, I mean, she gives me that too. She is thoroughly confident in what she's doing. So I'm very, very hot on that too. And so I totally agree with you fully. Her persona is perfect to this point and everything she said, and everything she's done. I mean, saying that, like, refusing to say these aren't my players. Like, no, she's like, these are my players. They stayed. Like, she's not making any excuses. I love everything she's done with that.
Okay, hot on this take that she will be among the 4 major sports the longest tenured coach at Tennessee. I don't think this one's hard. By the way, thank you, Timothy. We appreciate that. Some sports writers need to be dog cussed with some of the questions y'all ask.
Okay, it depends on the question at times. Nick Saban, every now and then, when he lashed out at somebody, probably.
Wait, don't get sidetracked. Answer the Caldwell question.
It's down to Caldwell or Tony Vitello for me, but I'll go Caldwell. Yeah, I think she'll be the longest tenured. Caldwell will be the longest tenured.
I don't think there's any question. It surprised me that it took you that long.
I mean, you never know with, like, I mean, Tony Vitello did win a national championship. So, like, that's why I said, like, Tony Vitello has the biggest, like, has control of whenever he wants to leave. But he could also want to leave for Arkansas. So we'll see. But Caldwell's. So, yeah, I'll go Caldwell.
What did Steve have to say in the message board?
That she's beautiful.
Okay. So from now on, to not be sexist, here's what we're going to do. Every time we say that Kim Caldwell is beautiful, we have to say Tony Vitello is handsome.
Oh, we've talked about Tony Vitello's looks a lot on this show.
But we're not going to talk about the looks of either of them much. But when it comes up, like, I just want you to check me. Just say, if I say Kim Caldwell's hot, then you've got to say Tony Vitello is handsome.
Is Tony Vitello's looks the reason he doesn't have a family at this point? Is it just it's a little too easy for him?
Why are you going there?
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. Okay. Well, I mean, maybe he has. I don't know.
Who was it? There was a player who played for Washington back in the day. You may know him. I forget his name, but he didn't get married until his mid-60s. And he basically said, yeah, because he said, I believe in honoring commitment, and I wouldn't have been able to physically honor commitment until I was in my 60s, if you know what I'm talking about.
They'll honor you at Work Trucks. Work Trucks, I'm telling you, it's all about trucks. Trucks are available. Trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships can't do it. Work Trucks, the process is quick and easy. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, and anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks vehicles, man, they've got them. People just like you, and get you back on the road. If you're a contractor, you need to know Work Trucks. That's Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com. Their entire inventory is online. Work Trucks will also make sure you have the perfect vehicle you have to have. They'll find the perfect truck, outfit it, make sure it fits your needs. Work Trucks, proud supporters of the Vols. WorkTrucksLLC.com. WorkTrucksLLC.com. You see it right there. Coming up. Well, we addressed the Cam Newton situation. We got a little off kilter. But why the Vols, in my opinion, are contenders, not pretenders, as Caleb says. Coming up next, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. They have perfected the SEC. They have perfected the buying process, and they're absolute tops when it comes to supporting locals, and they're on Kingston Pike and Parkside Drive. Give me 2 minutes, and we'll get to the SEC 9-game schedule as well. Off the Sports with Caleb, Calhoun, and Dave Hooker.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The super dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is your super dealer, just in time for truck month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the super dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
We go. This was a huge waste of time, like bringing a married guy to Vegas.
Then there's this guy, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
I wonder if we can get that redone, like taking Nicolas Cage to Vegas. Did you see him leaving Las Vegas?
No, I have not.
Oh my Lord, I'm so old. That's one of the greatest movies ever. I mean, he basically gets, spoiler alert. I mean, it's 20 years old. He gets laid off by his company and he cashes out his 401k and he decides to drink himself to death in Vegas. It's a great movie.
That sounds like a really fun thing.
If you're going to go out, that's the way to go out.
That's how you go out, yeah.
But it goes downhill, and the prostitute's Elizabeth Shue, which I haven't been around a lot of prostitutes, but I'm guessing most don't look like Elizabeth Shue. How about you? Prostitutes' thoughts?
I'm sorry?
Prostitutes' thoughts? When you're on the show every day with a hooker for 2 hours.
I know, but you got to know that I've only seen Elizabeth Shue her career was dead by the time I was growing up.
Gosh.
She I think her career died before Molly Ringwald's did.
Similar career path. All right, so hit that like and subscribe button if you like Caleb, because and if you like my hair and you think I need a haircut. I don't know, man. I start to look at it and I'm afraid I'm balding a little bit. All right. So, Caleb, the SEC and Big Ten are meeting, and it seems to be the intention of the SEC. And I know Greg Sankey wants to do this because we talked to him about it at SEC Media Days. He wants this 9-game conference schedule to happen. How significant would it be? I think it'd be very significant. I think you would replace one of the Kent states with Mississippi State, whatever, but that's still better than a Kent State. I think it'd be huge for the viewership and the ratings of the conference.
I do. And I wrote a column on this, and I encourage you guys to read it. They should negotiate right now with ABC and ESPN. And here's what I mean by this, Dave. They should not go to a 9-game schedule until they get concessions from ESPN and ABC and a willingness for them to renegotiate this deal.
I don't have a problem with that.
And yeah, because let's be fair. Who does a 9-game conference schedule help, Dave? It helps the networks, right? It doesn't help the SEC.
No, it actually hurts individual coaches.
Yeah. So let's break down exactly what's happening here. First of all, if you go to a 9-game conference schedule, you play 8 fewer games in a year. In a conference schedule where if every SEC team plays 12 games and 8 are conference games, there's a total of 128 games involving an SEC team that ESPN has to carry in a year. 128. If you play 9 conference games and 3 non-conference games, because there's more games against each other, that actually brings the total number of games involving an SEC team to 120. Now, what's going to happen, Dave? You reduce the number of games. What type of games are we reducing here? You're not reducing marquee games. You're reducing, like you just said, Tennessee, Kent State, right? You're getting rid of that.
Yes, which is a total waste of time for everybody involved, us included.
Yes, so you're reducing Tennessee, Kent State, and you might get a Georgia, Florida. No, well, not Georgia, Florida. They play every year. Georgia played everybody. You might get a Georgia, LSU in response to that. Everybody's taking that deal. ESPN wants to offload those bad games because you know this, Dave. Those games that they're carrying, those really bad ones, Tennessee, Kent State, they hate having to carry those. They probably lose money carrying that game, having to sell it to their sponsors. They probably just try to break even.
You know, probably, and you mentioned Georgia, LSU. That was just random, but whatever it is, Georgia, Texas A&M. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the days that Florida and LSU didn't seem like a rivalry, but kind of does now. Does that make sense? I mean, it's not a rivalry, but it feels like because they play at the right time and I don't know. It feels like more of a rivalry than it is. And I remember when they didn't even play.
Yeah, you're right. And it really peaked in the mid 2000s. Funny enough, when you had the Urban Meyer, Les Miles years. I totally agree. So where I'm going with this is the SEC, you're reducing your number of games. Your direct attendance revenue is going to go down because you're reducing the number of games. That's just a fact. The TV revenue will go up because ESPN can carry more marquee games and not have to carry the Kent State games. So all you're doing is making ESPN and ABC more money. On top of that, you're further endangering your revenue because the SEC just had 3 teams get into the college football playoff and the Big Ten had 4 while the SEC was at an 8-game schedule. What if they go to a 9-game schedule and that damages more teams' college football playoff hopes? Beyond that, you're also damaging the bowl eligibility hopes of some teams because let's be honest, Dave, it's harder to get to 6 wins if there's a 9-game conference schedule. And so you'll have fewer bowl teams, fewer bowl payouts, fewer CFP payouts, fewer games for attendance payouts, but more money overall that's all going to go directly to the network. So the SEC should not do this until they should demand that ESPN and ABC like borderline double what they're paying them right now if they're going to do it.
No, I get that. Super chat from Timothy says, have a preseason. I don't know that would be sellable. And I don't know that you would want to play your players in a preseason games that had no meaning.
It's not. I mean, guys, look at NFL preseason. They play their starters for 1/2 of one game in a 4-game preseason. That's all they do.
General Ursus, I thought, had a great point. Sign me up to 9 conference games plus the 3 SEC versus Big Ten matchups. They are turning this into the NFL, so start playing like the NFL. Amen, brother. Do you completely agree with that or kind of agree with that?
I like the SEC versus Big Ten matchups, but I don't agree with making the college football like the NFL, and I never have, and I never will. It's a different product.
But it's there. You have to realize it's there.
It's there. And here's what I hate about it. I'm just going to tell you the biggest thing I hate about it. The novelty of when the SEC plays the Big Ten is about to go out the window. It's going to be more like looking like when the AFC plays the NFC. When you play a team from it's going to look like that.
No,
that's not as entertaining. Like the
AL, NL, the Yankees versus Mets.
Interleague ruined baseball.
Okay, but it played for 10 years. They're not thinking about 50 years from now, Caleb. They're thinking about their next paycheck in the next decade.
And that's my problem. Can somebody say what? Can somebody who runs college football?
Who runs college football? Though?
Nobody. That's the problem. You're right. But can some of these people running college football say, you know what? Yeah, we make a good bit of money. Yeah, we can increase our profits here for us personally. But we have a good product and we want this product to last a long time and we don't want to damage it. And we have more of a legacy to leave if we keep this thing in good shape way after we're here.
I'm sorry. You're the younger guy, but I think you're completely old fashioned. And Derek, and from his picture, I don't know Derek personally, but Derek looks younger. He says, "Pay to play, get it done." Bingo. It's just over, man. NIL doesn't need to ever be a term used again. It's an antiquated term like Prop 48. You don't need it. Just pay them. Just pay the dudes.
Sometimes when you're a business, Dave, you run a business. Sometimes every now and then, maybe you should say, this is what my business does, and this is the product I sell. Now, maybe I can make a little bit more money if I did this over here or this is over here, but that's not what I do. I do this. College football needs to stop and say one day, you know what? We have a good product. It's not the NFL product. There are differences, and that's okay. Okay? The NFL could never put a team in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They would never sell.
You know what's weird is actually Birmingham. They did really well there. The AF, what was it called? The American Athletic.
The AAFL.
Yeah, AF is what I called it.
I did not know that. And
They actually did okay in Birmingham. The AF. I actually talked a reporter into covering the AF and referred to it, the AF championship game, and referred to it in the press box as the AF, not the AFL.
You would do that. You would do that.
All right. What does General Ursus have to say?
See, I think NIL actually kind of enhanced the sport, but the playoff, I agree, has ruined the sport. I think the playoff has ruined the sport. Expanded conferences, the death of the Pac-12. I'm sorry, these mega conferences ruined the sport. If I were the king of college football, Dave, I would go back to 10-team conferences. 10 teams. That's it.
I don't hate that, but I don't think it's realistic. How about tomorrow we do this? What's the bigger problem with college football? NIL or playoffs?
Oh, okay. That's a good one because I got mine, and I think it's very clearly the playoff. But
all right, I feel challenged already. Here we go. All right, the Vols contenders or pretenders in men's basketball. 247 Sports had an article that I thought was insightful. Caleb, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so they were naming which of these elite teams are contenders or pretenders, and they refer to Tennessee as a pretender in college basketball. And it's something that is the same that you hear for Rick Barnes teams all the time. And it is their propensity to go just extremely cold from the field, which leaves them vulnerable and makes them eerily inconsistent, is what's written. And they tout the 64 points in a loss to Kentucky and the 43 points in the loss at Florida. So, yeah, I think that – so they're saying that Tennessee is just straight up pretenders, that they're a defensive-minded team and they don't have the offense consistently to win it all in the NCAA tournament.
I completely agree with that.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the guy nailed it. Whoever wrote it, good job, man. I mean, do you have an argument with that? I mean,
I think
where does the offense come from when they need it on a Thursday night in Charlotte, North Carolina?
I think Tennessee is good enough to score 70 points in every neutral site game they ever play. The offense has picked up recently. Yes, I get it. They only scored 64 at Kentucky. I've told you guys, Rupp Arena is worth 3 missed threes by itself.
Okay, I kind of feel like you're a little too married to your preseason expectation.
No, I'm not. They're not as good as last year's team.
Okay, but Caleb will deliver. The UPS store, Hardin Valley, delivers as well, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated. The link right down below. The UPS store, Hardin Valley, owned by Tennessee sports fans. I feel like you're a little too married to your preseason expectations.
No, I'm absolutely not. I mean, the depth is not what I thought it would be. What I'm only saying is that I don't think the offensive deficiencies are what people think they are this year. They revealed themselves at Florida. They haven't, and then at Auburn. But over the past 3 weeks, they really haven't. That hasn't been the issue. And you guys I get it. Kentucky, 64 points. But again, if that's a non-Rupp Arena game, then they're scoring 73 points that day, not 64. So that's
Timothy says contender. You got to be up all in there to be able to win it. Okay, I think that got a little weird. All right, can you go ahead and make that a poll question? Is Tennessee a contender or pretender? Sam says they are right. Tennessee consistently has games shooting 30% or less from the field to start games, which is insane for a good college team. It is. And then Nathaniel adds Dalton was the exception, not the rule. Guy keeps lighting it up in the NBA. He's pretty special. Caleb, in retrospect, it looks like Tennessee went after 3 players to replace Dalton Connect and didn't end up with a Connect. Shun.
They needed all 3 to
Shun.
They needed all 3 to emerge, and they missed on Darlington Dubar. I mean, I think it's safe to say that was a miss that even I had. I think had Darlington Dubar been what he was at Marshall, we'd probably be talking about a different team. But Dave, let's also be fair on this. Let's say 2 things that we didn't know was going to happen. Cameron Carr transferring, we didn't see that coming. No one saw that coming. And JP Estrella missing the year with a season-ending injury. Those 2 things really hampered a lot of what Tennessee wanted to do as well.
Do you think if you could go back and pull one of those players back, which would be the more valuable of the 2? Because I think one's a better player, but I'm not sure that one wouldn't be a better fit for this team. Again, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Let me ask you that question, Caleb, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, Parkside or Kingston Pike. Phenomenal. You've got to check out their selection. It is Ted Russell Ford Lincoln.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American made. Ted Russell Ford is your Super Dealer, just in time for Truck Month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford.
All right, Caleb, answer the question I teased to you.
Do I think
Don't overthink it. You got this.
Ask the question again. I'm sorry. I totally blinked out. I don't usually do that, guys. I'm not 100% today, but what was the question again?
Yeah, he's battling a cold. I thought you've done fantastic. And by the way, Derek, very nice phrase you said to say that, hey, the time flies. I can tell you guys are having fun. We appreciate that. We are. But I want to tell you guys what you do is incredibly important. And just supporting us is a big factor. Supporting our sponsors, because we're all free on offthesports.com, is absolutely huge. So we were discussing earlier, right before we told you how awesome that Ted Russell Ford Lincoln is. We were discussing the Vols.
I remember the question now. Which player would they want back? I would go Cameron Carr.
Between Estrella and Carr.
I'd go Cameron Carr. I think
Carr. Estrella.
See, I think with Igor Milicic now moving to play under the basket, he's now gotten a lot better, and Felix Opara has become more of an offensive threat down there. I think you only need 3 bigs. I'd go Carr. Carr would be a solid wing that could be an offensive threat, which Jemai Meshack is not, causing problems. So I would go Cameron Carr. But now, once you add intangibles, given the fact that Cameron Carr just up and flippant transfer mid-season, with that in mind, I'm taking Estrella now, obviously.
Okay, but what about another big? Am I the only person that is old school and loves another big?
I don't think the way this team is constructed that another big would help that much. I don't think that would work too well for them. If you're going to have like the play the inside out game you're talking about, Dave, you need 2 bigs that can be offensive threats, like under the basket. And so it's just not that they both have to be able to be offensive threats. You can't just do one. You can't just go inside out with one big that's an offensive threat, and Tennessee doesn't have that.
All right. Don't forget to mash the like button. Amen to that. We appreciate you, Blind Squirrel Sports. I mean, he's a Georgia fan. He's listening because we like to cover all kinds of stuff. So, Caleb, if you can, give us a reset on the poll question. Where do we stand there?
All right. Are the Vols contenders or pretenders? Man, 50-50. Straight up. Nobody can agree.
Now tell me. Paul Abdul.
Yep. It was Paul Abdul. Yep, straight up. Now tell me, do you really want to love? Yeah, but the better version was J. Cole's remix to that song. that came out in 2011.
No, that wasn't a better version. And
Was.
no, it wasn't. And she actually led to Whitney Houston's demise.
How?
A long story, but I'm a
I
documentary.
love how the Whitney PR team tried to make it out like Bobby Brown got her hooked on everything when it's like in reality she was hooked before she ever met Bobby Brown. Like, I feel sympathy for Bobby Brown. He took a lot of
sympathy for Bobby Brown.
No, he took all the PR heat for what happened to Whitney as if it was his fault. In reality, she probably got him hooked.
Okay. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. As we broadcast from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln studios, we certainly appreciate those guys, the largest volume dealer in East Tennessee. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Caleb's smiling, so it's been a good show. For Caleb,
No, I just hope people catch your sarcasm on our Twitter when you say why Aaron Hernandez is misunderstood.
Our views just spiked up. Did you see that? I thought, why Aaron Hernandez is misunderstood. For those just tuning in, Caleb, can you please tell us why Aaron Hernandez is misunderstood?
One time there was a little boy who didn't have any money for the grocery store, and Aaron Hernandez came over and gave him.
His daddy didn't love him. Have a fantastic